presentation. Here's the outline of my presentation, which will focus on partners in the learning agenda design and implementation, some of our successes in partnership, challenges, key lessons learned, and recommendations. As you all know, Growth Through Nutrition has partnered with SCI and project implementing partners, as well as external partners from government, academia, in the design and implementation of operational research. We've collaborated with existing research and learning platforms, including the FMOH, RAC, academia, the SUN, ECSC, and support evidence use for nutrition programming and policy. We have also established and implemented a project research learning working group where we, for sharing and dissemination of research and learnings from our project, as well as other projects, including NGOs, research institutions, academia, and government. We have also partnered with academic institutions through small grant program as part of Tufts local capacity building efforts. In the process, we are also in the process of establishing partnership with Hawassa University for the online training programs, which we expect to transfer the 11 courses or modules that Dan has shared with the participants at the beginning of his presentation, as well as in supporting the converting of one of the NSA training on online. Next, please. So some of our successes include the development of a robust learning agenda in a highly consultative process, which involves many of the project implementing partners, NGOs, academia, government, and research institution. The establishment of the project research and learning group with more than 40 members from various nutrition projects and institutions. And this later became a virtual platform, resulting in a significant increase in participants and wider dissemination of research and our learnings, both locally and globally. This is also one of our project research, and today's event is also part of our project research and learning working group. Tufts also participated, as I mentioned earlier, in existing research and learning platforms like the RMNC track, ECSC SUN, EPHI Monitoring Evaluation Research Steering Committee, and EPHI MIPN, and supported the development of various strategic documents, shared some of our research findings as an input to prioritizing policy research questions, and also provided capacity building support for FMOH track, mainly on policy brief development. Next. Tufts, through its small grant, has collaborated with 4 academic institutions and supported the capacity building of 5 local researchers. We have also effective partnership with SCA and partners in identification and prioritizing OR topics, lesson learned, and overall learning agenda implementation. Some of the challenges we've faced through this partnership is the planned platform for sharing research findings and participating in policy dialogue for nutrition programming and policies such as the ECSC SUN business and the ECSC SUN knowledge and management and learning platforms were not formed during the project period. So these are a missed opportunity for sharing some of our key learning, as well as for involving this platforms for the design and development of a learning agenda strategy. There was also limited participation from government counterparts, except for the Ministry of Agriculture in the project learning events, private sectors in the design and implementation of learning agenda. There was also limited involvement of project implementing partners in submitting content for the project website. For instance, we had limited news stories coverage from different components of the program. Next, please. Okay. What are some of our lessons learned include Okay, lesson learned include growth through nutrition is a very complex multi-sectoral project, but lesson learned from Engine project as well as a seamless partnership within the project have helped in the successful implementation of the project. Despite many challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic, there were also some positive changes, one of which was a wider embracing of virtual platforms for wider dissemination of research findings and lesson learned at a little to no cost. The other lesson learned is designing research for data to be collected remotely can be a solution when there are issues such as pandemic, security, or cost limitation. So some of our recommendations are private sectors can play a huge role in the design, implementation, and sustainability of nutrition programs. So future nutrition projects should devise various strategies to incentivize intensive engagement of private sector involvement in the nutrition program. Nutrition program can also be sustained with, only be sustained with greater ownership and commitment of government institutions. Hence, capacity building efforts and project exit strategies should be well thought out and communicated with government entities. There are still duplication of efforts in the project research and learning platforms. These platforms needs to be streamlined to improve their effectiveness. Future nutrition projects should support strengthening the existing government, civil society, and private sector research and learning platforms to support the translation of evidence for nutrition programming and policy. Embracing virtual technologies for increased dissemination of research and learning at a much lower cost. And a small grant program is a great way to empower local researchers to conduct research that could inform nutrition programs. This also provides a platform to create linkages and narrow gaps between the academia and program implementers. Thank you so much. This is all I have for today. So our next presenter will be from Jhpiego.
Thank you, Rahel. Hello, everyone. This is Andres from Jhpiego. I am the team lead for the pre-service education component of Growth Through Nutrition project. I'll be reflecting on the pre-service education component. So this Growth Through Nutrition project has a human resource capacity building aspect, and Jhpiego has been leading the pre-service education component with the aim to strengthen nutrition and WASH education in higher learning institutions, thereby strengthening nutrition technical expertise across sectors. So we have been supporting 19 higher learning institutions, 8 of them universities, and the rest were TVET colleges in the 5 regions in Ethiopia. So our target are the human nutrition and food science students, health science students, agriculture, and water technology students. And our aim was to reach out about 73,000 students as the end beneficiaries of this pre-service education support. So our intervention areas include curriculum strengthening, faculty capacity building, education quality improvement, and system strengthening, to create an enabling environment for nutrition and WASH skills learning and also assessment. So our intervention is based on strong partnership with 4 relevant ministries. As you can guess, we have been working with the Ministry of Science and Higher Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Water, Irrigation, and Energy. And we have also a very good partnership with 2 agencies. One is the Higher Education Relevance and Quality Agency, and the other one is the Federal TVET Agency, Technical Vocational Education and Training Agency. And we also have been partnering with one institute, the Ethiopian Water Technology Institute, for the work we have been doing at Water Polytechnic College in Ethiopia, and also the respective regional entities were our partners. Next slide. So just to present you some of the successes in our strategic areas. To start with the curriculum, I will be highlighting some of the outputs and outcomes. not to go into the process and the retail activities. So in curriculum, we managed to incorporate nutrition sensitive agriculture course in the undergraduate agriculture curricula, in all agriculture discipline curricula, be it in plant science, animal science, horticultural science, and all other disciplines. We have incorporated this NSA course, and also the WASH courses are also integrated in the water departments, including water supply and sanitation, irrigation and drainage, and also in electromechanical department. So these WASH courses are incorporated. In addition to that, the human nutrition and food science curricula was revised and harmonized nationally. And also the health science curricula, we have these nutrition courses, and those courses were revised and integrated in their curricula. So in staff capacity building, we have trained more than 1,800 faculty on pedagogic skills. Pedagogic skills like the effective teaching skills, competence-based assessment, skill lab management trainings, and also instructional materials design development skill trainings were provided. And also in the technical areas of nutrition and WASH, different courses were given. And one very important thing here is we have created a pool of qualified trainers in these higher learning institutions. We have like more than 90 master trainers who are able to cascade those pre-certification trainings, pedagogic and technical WASH nutrition courses. And these days we have seen some self-dependency of these higher learning institutions. They have started allocating budget for trainings and other purposes. They are cascading those trainings, and they develop new courses and provide those courses for their staff. And this is a very good improvement, and that is some indication of sustainability of our interventions in these institutions. And the higher diploma program, which is a government-led pedagogic skills training, which is a mandatory for all university staffs, is integrated with our pedagogic skills training content, the effective teaching skills content. It is enriched with this ETS content, and the HDP, which was given for all as generic course, now it is customized for health sciences and for agriculture science programs, and it is ready for next academic year. Next slide, please. Now, our success in education quality is, we have developed this standard quality improvement tools in collaboration with the Higher Education Relevance and Quality Agency, HERCA, for nutrition, agriculture, health, and this nutrition, agriculture, and health departments in the universities, and in collaboration with the Federal Activity Agency for agriculture, health, and water, mid-level professionals. And more than 80% of these institutions did quality audits using these standard tools, and they also developed enhancement plan, and they have started, implementing, this plan, and to fill those gaps identified in the quality audit. And as a result of this, classroom and practical instructions, as well as assessments, student assessment has improved, and we have seen results in students' competency assessment in the areas of nutrition and WASH, and those results show there is improvement in students' competency in these areas. So the pre-post study findings will be presented tomorrow. And with regard to system strengthening, we have been working with these higher learning institutions to establish nutrition and WASH skills laboratories. And we established new skill labs, as well as we strengthened existing nutrition skill labs, and we also supported these higher learning institutions to the development of smart classes with provision of materials and audiovisual aids. So these smart classes are furnished with different technologies, audiovisual aids, And those things improved students' nutrition and WASH skills. Next slide, please. So those successes didn't come, smoothly. We had, a number of challenges, and the obvious one is, COVID-19 pandemic and, the school closure for almost a year, which affected, the academic activities and, our interventions in these higher learning institutions for almost a year. And it also affected, students' competency somehow. There has been, again, some conflict and instability in different parts of Ethiopia, especially in the Tigray region. And, the last few months, we are not able to travel to Tigray region and, do planned activities for those institutions in the region. There has been also a high turnover of university and college management bodies. And the problem here is, there was no, good transfer of information by the personnel leaving the position to the new appointee about the different projects being conducted with partners, their progress, the next steps in the like. So we have to orient the new appointee everything from scratch, and it would take some time for that new appointee to understand and work with us again. So that was one of the challenges we had. There has been frequent changes and modifications in the curricula of target cadres. So especially after the new education and training roadmap put into effect, there had been frequent changes, curricular revisions, and harmonization workshops, and we had to be available in all those curricular activities and make sure that those courses introduced into the curricula are maintained in the curricula. And another challenge we had was inadequate support and commitment from Tufts University, especially from the Agriculture College management for ACL lab accreditation. As we all know, during the engine time, we supported Tufts University School of Nutrition, to become an academic center of excellence for nutrition. And during the Growth Reach project, we had a plan, to accredit the nutrition skills lab in selected parameters, and we had gone, a long step, but there were, a number of challenges, especially the challenges were associated with, lack of adequate support and commitment from the top university management, as well as from the management of the college. And it was different, kind of complex issues there, and that accreditation process was not realized yet. So these are some of the challenges we had. Next slide, please. So the lessons learned, we have learned a lot, but some of the lessons learned were, that strong partnership and collaboration ensures government buy-in, and it paves, the way to implementation success. So all the success we have so far, I mentioned, are due to that strong partnership. The ministries were on the driving seats in every PSC activities, and the agencies were with us, in education quality improvement or whatever activities. So, that's very important. Working with the government structure and strengthening the existing system ensures sustainability of intervention. So rather than introducing new system, new approach into these higher learning institutions, we found it, very, preferable, successful and strengthening, working on the existing system and strengthening of the system. For instance, we have been working with the Quality Assurance Office of the universities, to strengthen quality improvement activities, initiatives, within that, existing system. So, that works well, I think, now these quality assurance officers are, planning annual review meetings and doing, even without, our knowledge or our support. So that was really great. There is still unmet need for staff capacity building in the technical and pedagogic area. So for any, pre-service education project, there is still a need, huge need in staff capacity building from the institution's side, because still there is that need that we are not able to meet at this point. Projects should redesign tasks which are not given due attention and commitment by the key implementers. So in relation to our lesson with the laboratory accreditation process. If it doesn't work, projectors should stop and think and redesign some activities, especially if that activity is not getting adequate support and attention and commitment from the from the other side, from the key government implementing partner side. So that's very important to do it as early as possible. Universities have huge resources and they need we need to help them mobilize and utilize it efficiently. Next slide, please. So finally, just to give some recommendations, a comprehensive approach to pre-certification strengthening is very important. We cannot bring about the desired competencies with the target students by addressing just one issue in pre-certification. Curriculum is very important, staff capacity building is very important, system strengthening is very important. So we should be able to address these issues in a comprehensive manner so that we can get the desired outcome. Project implementation based on pre-intervention study would help identify gaps. So when we start our pre-certification intervention, we did two things. One is the baseline assessment, trying to assess the situation, the pre-certification environment in these higher learning institutions, and also we did students competency assessment before intervention, so that we can compare with their competency after intervention. So this approach is very important, and we recommend that for any program intervention. And defining the nutrition and WASH competencies help to clearly describe the roles and responsibilities of nutrition for. So when we work on curriculum strengthening, we started by defining the nutrition and WASH competencies of these target cadres, and that was very important. That helps to inform the pre-certification and also in-service training, as well as the nutrition workforce, their roles and responsibilities in realizing the national nutrition program. So those are the recommendations we have, and that's all from my side. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is one region who have to present a few presentations, and we are only around 10 minutes, so we appreciate you make the presentation as possible. The focus on partnership.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tamuru from World side. I'm leading the hardware part of WASH from World Vision. So I'm going to present the World Vision integration while working on this project with different partnerships or different organizations. Next slide, please. So these are the organizations that are World Vision work on to integrate the WASH activities. Particularly, was working with the government organization from regional to Woreda level for effective implementation. And within the project, we was working closely with PSI and with regard to capacitating the workforce. And we also engaged with the livelihood and agricultural advisors in selecting the multiple water use vulnerable households from the community. The next slide. Regarding the provision of the Woreda experts, was closely working with the Woreda Water Office and the regional water office, even with the nutritional, to provide nutritional related topics. And we also engage closely with the Woreda level water. Engage and work closely with DON and Woreda level water resource experts and communities, starting from feasibility studies and until the completion of the water scheme constructions. And we also strategically focus on the RPS schemes to work closely with the Woreda water schemes while doing the feasibility study at the start of the each construction activities. Next slide. And the other one is closely working with the Jhpiego to establish the established water laboratories at the regional level. And we also engage or work closely with landowners in providing best kind of vegetables for the trained vulnerable households on multiple water use. Second slide. Next slide. So these are the success. The successes are construction and rehabilitation of 263 schemes, which benefits around 187,000 and more beneficiaries, including solar pump and including construction of solar pump in 10 RPSs in 30 waredas, and establishment of and training and activation of 320 workforce successfully to for the constructed schemes to manage those schemes while we're phase out from each waredas. These are also one of the integration waredas we work with the PSI to promote their activities. Next slide. Yeah, as I mentioned before, the WASH course was also linked with the private sector, which are organized by PSI, and we also closely work with the regional water office, particularly with the Amara region, to pilot the water utility, the rural water utility management for sustainable management of water schemes. During this work, we provide training for the regional WASH experts, Woreda WASH experts, and zonal WASH experts, and we're trying to organize and train around 4 utilities for those constructed RPS scheme, particularly in Amhara region. Next slide. And the other success, we've been providing capacity building training for around 301 WASH experts on operation and maintenance, water quality, construction, contract administration, and quality construction in collaboration with the Woreda Water Office and regional water office by designing a training manual by the mentioned topics based on the skill gap assessment result. And the other one is we provide around 900 to vulnerable households on multiple water use by integrating our work with the livelihood advisor and cultural advisors, and also with the we provide support from the landowners team to get seedlings for those trained vulnerable households. In addition to this, we also work closely with the Tufts University to do an operational research on the functionality of the constructed schemes and WASH costs. The other success area is our trained WASH also serves as a platform to promote the nutrition SPCC and other SP material for the project. Next slide. So these are some of the challenges that are faced while we're working together in this consortium. Each partner office has independent operational and procurement processes that affect our implementation to expedite to level-based. The other one is unequal responsibility, disposing and accountability among partners, especially from government partners. The government partners paid insufficient follow-up, particularly for the trained WASH costs that lead the unfunctionality of the schemes. The other one is insufficient staffing in low coordination office at field level has affected the equal engagement to implementation among partners. Next slide. High turnover of the government staff. As I mentioned in our success, we trained around 300 to WASH experts, but after we provide training on different aspects, they resign due to different problems. But when we back to the Woreda, the trainings are left to other Woreda. So the turnover issue has faced more. The selection in the location of dispersely located operational district for WASH activity has highly exhausted the effort of implementation, has consumed extra energy for resource mobilization. And the other one is the security challenge, has also a challenge to integrate with the other organization or consultant. Next slide. Severe escalation of construction materials has also affected our implementation. So as you know, the construction works are mainly done in collaboration with the private contractors. So the escalation of the cost escalation for construction material has highly affected our implementation regarding the WASH hardware implementation. Due to weak mobilization from the Warada Government Partners Office, engagement and contribution of the community during the development of the scheme is less than they expected. So because of the poor mobilization of the Warada government, the community are not mobilized as we expect, particularly on those we need the participation of the community. The other one is the role of USAID consulting firm was not clearly stated in the original project plan and has created some confusion and affect the communication and the implementation of the hardware part. Next slide. So these are the lessons learned to address a large number of beneficiaries. Project has followed a strategic shift from the point source scheme to rural pipe system. So we try to address more beneficiary by shifting our strategies. The other one is development and construction of environmentally friendly and more sustainable technology of solar systems has been implemented. And we also implement as a pilot the utility management system, particularly the rural water schemes, or try to manage using the utility system. We are on the way to shift from the WASHCO to the utility management. The other one is building the capacity of the WASH experts. This is very important to implement any project at the ground level. Next slide. Working closely on water scheme design and construction monitoring with donor consultant has positively contributed for the effective quality product delivery at the grassroots level. And ensuring the quality of water before and after construction of the scheme was so effective on all water source construction under GTN. It was effective and helpful for the implementation for partner staff to share the same office at prime organization, and good to have also a comprehensive agreement with the region as a project, not separately with partners. Next slide. So these are the recommendation from our side: establish and create a strong binding agreement among all partners, specifically government partners with a discrete accountability to dispose their respective responsibilities. So it is good to have a binding agreement across all partners, including the government organization who have a stake on this on this project. The other one is appropriate staffing and logistics should be considered at the beginning of the project. At the start of the project, we have some challenges in staffing and logistic issues. So, but through process, the staffing and the logistic issue was improved. It will be more effective and efficient to operate systematically selected, close and geographically concentrated areas, which will enhance the impact and minimize energy for resource mobilization. The selection and location disparately located operational district for WASH activity has highly exhausted the effort to implementation, has consumed extra energy for resource. In short, during designing of the project, it is good to consider the project area are very close to have good utilization of resources and the likes. And it should be good also to have a pre-assessment and identification of the operational district with less security threat. Next slide. And provision of sufficient logistics for partners based on demand of the activity, specifically vehicle for highly demanding activity, and also prioritizing rural pipe systems than point source, and also allocation of sufficient budget for capacity building, basically like, particularly for software activities. And next slide. Pre-assessment, and this is also, we have already said, clearly specify the partners and their role at the very beginning of the project, plan to avoid confusion and delayed implementation due to lack of such assignments. And it would be more effective to implement the whole package of WASH activity under a single organization. It would be good to implement both the software and the hardware part by one implementer. Next slide. Yeah, I think thank you for my side.
Thank you, Tamara. Okay, we'll have the next presentation from Mikhail, CVDA.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Mikhail from Common Vision for Development Association. CVDA is one of the implementing partner of gross nutrition program in ASEAN and Ethiopia region. We are working in 5 zones. For the last 3 years, we implemented in 4 zones, and we added in the year 5 additional 3 zones. So we are targeting around 9,795 committee members through enhanced committee conversation. So we have fathers, mothers, grandmothers, and saving group members who have 20 members, around 20 members of each group. So we will conduct the session for 10 sessions. I would like to focus on the partnership issue, not about success of CVDA program, but as per guidance from the organizers, I would like to focus on community engagement and stakeholders with local NGOs in the context of gross nutrition. So the success of gross nutrition in community participation, especially the ECC part, is there is a great acceptance in the community of ECC activity. Initially, we will have a fear. Community may not participate, may not want to participate in ECC session, but during implementation, we observed that sometimes we enroll 20 persons in one group. Sometimes around 30-40 people comes to attend the ECC session, which are not a member of ECC group. Also, after attending ECC group, community able to understand clearly. Mostly the community understands the nutrition problem is about the rich and poor issue, but they didn't have skill and knowledge how to have diversified food at home with low resource available at home. So the ECC was effective to aware community, to empower community, to have more information on diversification of foods, star foods, some else. Also, after ECC session, some community members started, especially women groups, are actively engaging in saving by their own interest to buy some supplies which are not available in their home, like vegetable seeds, fruit seeds, chickens, to have egg for their children. So we have seen this kind of trend in the women's attended in the EC groups. These women are not a part of support from the Dietary program, livelihood program. they started saving and buying chickens by their own. The other success of the program is male engagement part. We engaged fathers of under 2 years children and partners of pregnant women. So men's engagement in the children and women nutrition improved. During field visit, we observed that some fathers who are concerned about their children nutrition and practiced their lessons in the EC session at home and discuss with their wife. So in the community, it improves the male engagement part of nutrition activity. The other success also in the partnership side from the government bodies. During our field visit or review meeting with the government account, we learned that the government bodies like health bureaus and agriculture bureaus understand that they can reach the community with the nutrition ACBCC, with the health extension by changing the approach. Mostly the health extension provide message on nutrition and so message, but the approach is not attractive to the community. But the ECC, the design, the ACBCC materials, it's a pictorial, so it attracts the community to attend the ECC session. So it helped also the health extension to easily reach the community on nutrition issues. So the BCC program was huge success for the Worada. Also the Worada health bureaus get the resource, most the manuals, posters and some materials are at the Worada level, so they can continue the ECC program after the project phased out. What the lesson learned in the program is mostly the key point is in the ECC part is ECC showed that nutrition problem are due to understanding of way of consuming balance in that rather than food scarcity. So we learned that if we empower community, if you reach the community in the SBCC message, we can change. We can change huge impact on the nutrition problem in the community, because we cannot reach in livelihood or other program a large group of community. So this ACBCC approach was effective to reach more community and to have effective intervention on the nutritional activity. So it is important to scale up this ECC approach even by the government. The other is strong collaboration and coordination mechanism is important in the nutrition program. There must be a strong collaboration system at the Worada level. Also, there must be strong collaboration mechanisms between implementing partners in the growth through nutrition activity. So, if the collaboration is strengthened, we can achieve more than we planned or more than we think on the nutrition or in the project. The other lesson we learned is community members have high interest to improve their diet or their children nutrition if coordinated nutrition intervention conducted. So if there is sometimes there may be a need for livelihood issue. Some family members have a very problem in the household level because they didn't have sufficient income to provide some food items mentioned in the ECC session. So if the ECC session strongly linked with the livelihood session program, we can reach more community. Also, community have high interest to improve their children nutrition. Next slide. One of the challenges we faced in the program is as it's known, CVDA is working, work is limited to ECC. So the need of the community is wide. Sometimes it's beyond, it can be solved by ECC. So there is a livelihood need, wash, agriculture needs. Sometimes ECC participants need improved seeds, supply, other things. So this must be coordinated. Also, local NGO engagement in the nutrition program must be improved. Also, as I mentioned before, there is a need of livelihood service in ECC participant. So this can't be solved by ECC, even if there is behavior change. If we create behavior change, if there is no sufficient food at home, they can't practice what learned in the ECC program. So it must be strongly linked. I strongly suggest also in the recommendation on the how approach the nutrition program can work to have effective implementation. Sometimes there is a limitation in collaboration between IRS, also at the Orda level. There is good communication in between IRS. We have sufficient review meetings. We have invited in the quarter biannual review meetings, but at the Orda levels, the linkage, starting from selection of beneficiaries, others activity must be strongly linked with local partner and implementers at the Orda level in the grocery nutrition program. The other thing is Orda level nutrition coordination platform is not strong. Sometimes we strongly work to engage government actors in the ECC, especially the health extension workers, DAs, to have sustainable program, but in some Oradas, the government structure is weak to support the program. So it was difficult to have good program achievement in scale-up governance in some areas. One of the challenge I didn't mention in the slide was ECC. We have implemented ECC in the SNNPR region. As you know, SNNPR region is a multilingual region, so the ACBC material is in the Amharic language. So there is some difficulty by our CCAs to conduct ECC session because they read the Amharic version and they translate to local language. So sometimes there is a language skill problem to translate sufficient message to ECC participants. So some message will be distorted during this ECC session. So it was one of the great challenges, especially in the SNNPR region. So it must be considered for the next time during preparing ACBCC materials. Next slide. Our recommendation is, the first recommendation is it is important to strengthen the linkage between R for effective intervention. So the linkage between the grocery nutrition implementers must go beyond, it goes to at Orda level. We have some communication with Save the Children, PSI, some partners at Orda level, but it's not strong. Also, engagement in selection of the beneficiary also minimum. Also, our next recommendation is it is important to use the SCBCC activity as entry point, because if we reach in SCBCC activity, most clients at first it is easy to achieve livelihood or wash or agricultural target. So if you use ACBC entry as the first entry point, it will be good for the other activities. Also, local NGOs should be empowered in their scopes and engagement in the ACC program. So it needs better empowerment, and it is for better community empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the last presenter is from FIDO. Yeah, if you can deliver your presentation in the next 5 minutes, we would appreciate it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, FIDO is working GTN with Warada's Level Health and Agricultural Office at West Oromia. To tell you about the success. Husbands and wives please, Ilma, would you meet your decide together on family and nutrition issues? Slide, please. You participants started to prepare and provide foods for their children, and pregnant women started to visit health facilities taking iron folic acids, and participants provide support to their lactating mothers exclusive breast for their less than 6 months old children.
I think we're having a poor
their
connection.
pregnant and lactose fuel toiling facility. Yeah.
Hearing. I think there is a connection problem. We're not hearing you properly. So
No, I'm using the link, so it's a high frequency of connection.
okay.
Okay, May, what about now?
It seems better.
I think it still breaks up. Okay, continue and let's see.
Okay, participants provide support to the
You're breaking up,
mothers
Daniel, sorry.
to give exclusive. Yes?
You're breaking up, sorry, the internet connection continue. So I think we need to proceed to the next section. Sorry about convenience.
Sorry, Daniel, would you be able to find somewhere with a better connection? And in the meantime, we could run through the next slide if you don't mind.
Okay. What about now? I just changed the place for the connection.
We can only hear.
Is it
We
not
can only
audible
hear
now?
parts of what you're saying. It's breaking up very heavily.
Daniel, it's okay. Let's proceed to the next presentation now, since we are running behind our schedule.
Okay.
Sorry about that. We don't have.
I think our last.
Okay. Thank you all the presenters for your great presentation. Now we're going to switch our gear a little bit from overall listeners to a specific research. Eileen Kennedy, Principal Investigator at Tufts University, will deliver a presentation on the role of household assets in improving women's diet diversity in Ethiopia. I'd like to welcome Eileen. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be able to participate today. The only thing that would have made it better is if I could be in Ethiopia, and hopefully this will happen soon. The work I'll be talking about today looks at diet diversity and derives from the ENGINE program, which is the predecessor program to Growth Through Nutrition, had some of the same objectives and focused on what I call the 1,000 days, pregnant women and children up to age 2. If I could have the next slide, please. Of course, I'd like to acknowledge the tremendous help provided by Save the Children Ethiopia, and also acknowledge my other Tufts University colleagues. If I could have the next slide. We know suboptimal diet is a major determinant of poor nutritional status in women. So here we are looking at diet quality by looking at mean dietary diversity, MDD, and we are using the definition of FAO, minimal dietary diversity. Minimal dietary diversity is 5 or more food groups a day out of 10. The work here was conducted in 2014 to 2016 and followed women in pregnancy through birth and up to 1 year of age of their child. Time periods 1 and 2 are during pregnancy. Time period 3 is birth, and 4 is 3 months old of the infant. 5 is 6 months old, 6 is 9 months old, and time point 7 is 1 year old of the infant. I note here that the methodology for collecting dietary data changed from time period 1 to the other time periods. So it's not appropriate to compare time period 1 to the other time periods. But what you see here in this first slide is that across all study time points, the mean minimum dietary diversity score was quite low in women. Next slide, please. And then when we look at the proportion of women meeting minimum dietary diversity is also quite low, ranging from about 13% to 20%. What's interesting there is time point 3 has the highest proportion of women meeting minimum dietary diversity. And as I said before, this is at the birth of the child. So there might have been some celebrations going on. If I could have the next slide, please. Then we wanted to look at the proportion of women meeting minimum dietary diversity by availability of food crops. A number of crops, obviously, in this table going from 0 to 6. What jumps out at me as I look at this graph is that when you get to the level of 6 or more food crops, the proportion of women meeting MDD increases significantly. Next slide, please. We also then looked at proportion of women meeting MDD by availability of livestock. It doesn't vary very much across these categories going from 0 to 5. While we know the number of livestock, we don't know the particular livestock. So all we can say is across these level of having livestock availability, there isn't dramatic differences in percent of women meeting MDD. Next slide, please. Now here we look at across time periods, vitamin A rich foods. Are they consuming these? Yes or no? And in this particular table, when we're talking about vitamin A rich foods, we mean nutrient rich fruits and vegetables with vitamin A. I was surprised, given the cropping situation in the areas that we were dealing with in Ethiopia, that the proportion of women consuming any vitamin A rich foods was so low. You see there at the bottom, the total of any is 6.65%, which is extraordinarily low. Next slide, please. We also then were interested in animal source foods. Were they consuming, yes or no? And the percentage here is higher than the nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables at around 24%. And again, I would like to highlight time period 3, where the proportion of women was almost twice any of the other percentages at 46.47%. Again, time point 3 was at time of birth of the study infant. So there's something else is going on, and we are concluding it is celebrations within the community and the households as a result of birth of the child. Next slide, please. We were very interested in the association between the minimum dietary diversity in women and certain household agricultural variables. And here we are looking at availability of agricultural land, farm equipment, food crops, non-food crops, and livestock. Each of these variables is a significant predictor of improving the dietary diversity of women's diets. Now, we may be tempted to look at this table and say, well, this is not surprising, because what these data represent, or what these data indicate, is that wealthier households' dietary quality or dietary diversity in women's diet is better. However, in this analysis, we controlled for quintiles of household wealth. So controlling for wealth, we're still seeing significant effect of land availability, farm equipment, food crops, and non-food crops, as well as livestock. So something other than wealth is driving the association between these agricultural assets and improving dietary diversity in women. Next slide, please. And then again, the proportion of women meeting their minimum dietary diversity, we see the same type of variables that are significant, although availability of agricultural land, while significant, is less robust than what we saw in the earlier slide. Next slide, please. Now here we break down the agricultural assets that we've already assessed into categorical variables. And what I'd like to look at here specifically is the third item down, food crops. Once you get beyond producing only one food crop, each of these levels going from 2 to 6 are significant predictors of whether or not the woman met the minimum dietary diversity, and the effect of this gets progressively higher as you go from producing one food crop up until 6. And then the same thing we see with non-food crops. Within this case, let me be clear, the non-food crops are cash crops. And what we see here, as opposed to producing no cash crops or no non-food crops, producing either 1 or 2 cash crops, non-food crops, is a significant predictor of improving or having a woman achieve minimum dietary diversity. And in a prior paper, we looked at this prior brief we did for growth through nutrition in this case. And what we find is that the major pathway driving this positive effect of cash crops is that the income generated from cash crops, from the sale of cash crops, results in increased food expenditures in the household. And so cash crop is a significant predictor of diet quality in households. Interestingly, in female-headed households, the effect of cash crops and cash crop sales is even more significant. And then finally, we see that livestock, the availability of livestock in the household, increases the probability that the woman meets minimum dietary diversity. Next slide, please. So some very top line summary conclusion. Dietary diversity in women in this study area is low, and the mean diversity was between 3 and 4. And percent of women meeting the dietary diversity standard was between 12 and 20%. The production of food crops was associated with an increase in both the mean dietary diversity and the percent of women meeting the minimum dietary diversity target. Next slide, please. Growing 2 or more food crops increase women's dietary diversity, and growing 2 or more crops had progressively more significant effect in influencing, meaning improving, the dietary diversity of women. The cultivation of non-food crops, and we said this means cash crops, improve the diet quality of women. Next slide, please. Possessing livestock also significantly improved the diet quality of women. And the components of engine, which were a combination of nutrition sensitive as well as nutrition specific activities, were associated with improvement of diet quality in women. And I'd like to add here, given what I heard from some of the prior presentations, in the data we presented here, we don't look at some of the nutrition specific activities, but engine indeed had a very strong communication component. And we know from follow-up work in growth through nutrition, where we've looked at decision-making around what households produce, what households consume, and what households sell, we find that in some of the data, and this is coming out in a paper very soon in the Food Nutrition Bulletin, what we find is the communication strategy in growth through nutrition, and it was somewhat similar in ENGIA, but we know from data in growth through nutrition that communication strategy are beginning to bring about changes in behaviors at the household level, and mothers are reporting that they're more aware that diet, and particularly nutrient-rich vegetables, are an important part of children's diet. So over time, we are seeing positive shifts in behavior. And over, we've heard from the presentations today that these approaches, whether they're engine or growth through nutrition, are complex, but these complex strategies, both in engine and growth through nutrition, are producing positive impacts on the targeted outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen, for the great presentation. I don't know what your schedules are like, but do you mind waiting for another 10 minutes for question and answer in case anyone...
Happy to wait. I'm really enjoying the overall activities. I'm happy to wait.
Okay, thank you. Participants, if anyone has any questions, you can drop in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask question.
If I may, Rahel, I failed to mention this is quite a large sample size. It was 4,560 pairs, meaning pairs being pregnant women and their infants. And again, over the time period of pregnancy up to 1 year. So it covered quite a substantial series of variables within this domain, not simply diet quality. So very, very robust study.
Okay. Yeah, speakers, we have questions for the other speakers, and if anyone has any questions, please drop your questions on the chat box. But in the meantime, the previous presenters can respond to some of the questions already asked by the participants.
Go through the questions and see if they have any responses. We have a lot of text.
Oops.
Can you hear me?
Alex on our, yeah, Anile, I think you had one question for Alex.
Yeah, for Ellen. Hello, Ryan.
Yes, for Alex.
I have one question for Ellen.
Ellen, okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you for the presentation. You have mentioned that more type of crop production increase or associated with that diversity, and also cash crops have a contribution for that diversity. Which one is better from the assessment?
All things being equal, food crops have more of an effect than cash crops, although they're both significant.
Right, do you have any other questions for Eileen? Anele, I think you had a question for Amara also.
Yeah, I have already dropped in the chat box, so if have seen that.
Amara, are you online? Mebs or Amara can respond to this one.
Yeah, I have already responded in the chat box, but I think those 90 farmers are who purchase fertilizer from the model farmers who are engaged on fertilizer production business engagement. GTN by its nature has provided theory training for agriculture extension workers at Warada as well as zone levels. And those agriculture extension workers who took a theory training will also cascade the same training for development agents at Kabale level. So those development agents who are working at Kabale level are supporting those model farmers. So since GTNs are working through the government existing government exchange system, I think even if GTN is phased out, the government structure will support those model farmers, and hopefully they will continue this extension service. Thank you very much.
All right. I don't see any more questions, so I guess we're coming to the end of our today's session. Again, I would like to thank all the presenters for the great presentation, participants for active participation, and we look forward to having you tomorrow. With the program starts at 9 a.m. We are recording all the presentations. The webinar is being recorded. We'll be sharing summary reports, and also will be shared on our website. But until then, it's goodbye from me, and I'll look forward to meeting you tomorrow morning at 9. Thank you, everyone.